Sergei Bessarab was a hardened criminal and had spent almost 18 years in prison before coming to faith in Christ through the witness of another prisoner. After being released from prison in 2001, Sergei and his new wife Tamara felt called to gospel ministry. Sensing the Lord's call to a particular Central Asian city, he said to Tamara, "The Lord has bestowed us with such an honor to establish the first Christian church in this city." They began by distributing Christian literature at the bazaar. People began to come to the Lord. As the church grew, Sergei and Tamara began to receive threats from the local community. Even the local newspaper blamed Pastor Sergei for crimes around the city and listed the address of the church publicly. The newspaper said, "Who will deliver our town from this terrible man?" Despite the threats, Sergei and Tamara continued to be a faithful witness. One night, not too long after, everything would change. After returning home from a prayer meeting, Pastor Sergei was quietly playing his guitar when shots rang out. He was shot 3 times, with the third shot hitting him in the chest. The gunman continued shooting, but Pastor Sergei was already dead. This all took place on January 12, 2004, less than 1 year after Sergei and Tamara had moved to town. Tamara initially wondered why God would allow this, but she quickly began to see the fruit of Pastor Sergei's life and death. During Sergei's own funeral, his 18-year-old son gave his life to the Lord. Tamara also received dozens of letters from those who had been in prison who had been affected by Pastor Sergei's ministry. One prisoner said, "Sergei's death was not in vain, for because of it we have received Christ." God even brought Pastor Sergei's own murderer to the faith. After he was put in prison for Sergei's death, another prisoner, who Sergei had originally led to the Lord, led Sergei's killer to the Lord. And the church that was so precious to Pastor Sergei continued to be a faithful witness to the city. It was a living witness of Christ's death and resurrection, and of Christ's forgiveness and love for the Muslim community. Pastor Sergei's life was very similar to the words of one of his favorite Bible verses, John 12:24. It says, "Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it produces much grain." On this day of the Christian martyr, we celebrate the life and ministry of Pastor Sergei Bessarab. Even 20 years after his death, the ministry that the Lord equipped him and his wife Tamara to do is still producing much grain.